I believe that we do ourselves kind of a disservice in the policing profession as it relates to basic communication skills. And so, I wrote the paper with a colleague of mine on active listening, which I think we oftentimes take for granted. And then in the policing profession, we say, hey, those aren't basic skills, which I'm arguing they are. Those are advanced skills, and so if you want to be a detective, then you're going to learn how to build rapport, which active listening is kind of that first step. Hey, if you want to be a negotiator, then we'll teach you those skills. When in fact, I think that if we were teaching those basic skills at the street level more than we do, and then after the fact, what I learned from the paper is actually practicing and forcing that practice, we're going to be better off when we communicate with the community, with the general public, whether I'm a police officer on the street, whether I'm a detective, so on and so forth. I would argue those skills are going to benefit humans generally speaking, and we don't spend enough time focusing on them. So I think you got to recognize them as basic skills. I think that we have to start, in the police academy, doing more about communication, recognizing that active listening skills are those baseline skills that, along with empathy, will get you to that rapport that will allow you to, hopefully, when it's called for, it will allow us to basically change somebody's behavior. Just by saying that we want to do these things but not practicing them, I think is detrimental. So what typically happens in our agency, I was in charge of the negotiation team. I did that for 15 years, and so SWAT would get, say, 24 hours of training every month, where we would get 8. And that was kind of wishy-washy whether it was going to happen or not, but they have gotten, the SWAT guys have gotten it figured out, where they're going to have this training because it's required. Well, we didn't have those things kind of in place as well as we should have, because we weren't being driven by the evidence. And so therefore, those kind of went by the wayside. And so I would just say that you've got to make that a priority. So I think we've got to get better at roll call training. There's 2 roll calls for the guys and girls that I work with, where there's 30 minutes before they're really dispatched to anything. Just making better use of that time. Doing some scenarios, having them practice those skills. But I think you want to practice them enough that they become conversational. You want it to be not unlike firearm use. Like I do this enough that I am comfortable, using this skill when I need it, which of course we oftentimes put a lot of emphasis on that. And the reality is it's important because you want to go home at night. However, I would say, going back to the communication skills, those are the critical skills that we as a profession need to get better at.